Hi, Mr. President. My name is Marquez, and I'm a student in New Jersey. While I saw your recent proposal to adjust the minimum wage in the United States, that's good news for students like me, but could be bad news for businesses in the U.S. with their increased expenses. So my question to you was, what were your plans to keep high-tech businesses and jobs in the United States when other countries don't have the same restrictions?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to recognize that our overall strategy has to be to attract new jobs and manufacturing back into the United States. And so I laid out a whole range of proposals, changing our tax code so we're incentivizing companies to stay here instead of moving overseas, making sure that we're creating hubs of advanced manufacturing here in the United States. We've got models where we're already seeing that happen. Making sure that we're training our workforce for the jobs that exist right now. That can have a huge impact. So there are a wide range of efforts that we've got to move forward on to ensure that this is the best place to do business in the world. Now, when it comes to the minimum wage, what we've seen is that most studies indicate that, in fact, it does not have a big impact on employment, but it does have a big impact on a portion of our workforce that works full-time but right now is still in poverty. Even if they're working 40 hours a week, they are still making less than is required to get above the poverty line. And the truth is that the purchasing power for the minimum wage is still significantly lower than it was back in the 80s. And what we would do would be able to set that mark and then index it so that the purchasing power from a minimum wage does not continually decline every time there's inflation. This, by the way, was an idea that wasn't just proposed by me. It was also proposed by Mr. Romney during the presidential campaign. I don't think people would suggest that somehow he wanted to be tough on business. But what we've seen generally over the last 20 years is that increases in productivity in our economy are helping a lot of folks at the top, less folks in the middle, and at the bottom. And wages and incomes have not gone up even as productivity and the profits from productivity have gone sky high. And there are a lot of countries that are competing very well. Some of our toughest competitors, countries like Germany, for example, who in fact have seen greater wage and income growth. This is just one portion of our efforts to make sure that workers are also benefiting from the hard work that we're all doing.
Mr. President, if I may jump in, I am curious about what the minimum wage will do to just regular people, the minimum wage, raising it will do to regular people like me. I've been in a situation where minimum wage has been raised and I've had to let go to employees from a nonprofit because we just couldn't afford the wages anymore. But as a mom, I worry about how that's going to affect the bottom line when I go to the grocery store, when I go to get that Starbucks in the morning after dropping my kids off at school or at the gas pump. How will the minimum wage affect what I buy day to day as companies are having to raise their prices to accommodate the minimum wage? That concerns me,
Well, right, and I guess I guess I'd make 2 points, Kira. First of all, the fact of the matter is corporate profits are at record highs, right? So what's happening right now is not that corporations and most companies would be somehow obliged to go out of business because they're providing a little higher wage to minimum wage workers. It might have some modest impact on their profits, but the fact of the matter is, if we're going to have a society in which we've got broad-based prosperity, those same businesses also have to worry about the customers have money in their pockets. Henry Ford, when people asked him, why is it that you're giving these big raises to your assembly workers? He said, the only way I'm going to be able to sell enough of my product, these cars, is to make sure that the people who are building them can actually afford to buy one. And what's always made America's economy stand out, what's driven its growth, is the fact that we've built this big, thriving middle class. We don't just have a bunch of folks at the bottom who are scraping by and then a few folks at the top who are doing incredibly well. And so what we want to do is just make sure that if you work hard in this society, that you've got a living wage. Nobody's going to be getting rich on $9 an hour. They're still going to be struggling, but it could make the difference between whether they can afford to buy groceries or whether or not they are going to a food bank. And my suspicion is that you'll still be able to get your Starbucks as a consequence.